Hey everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today as we discuss social listening and how to get to grips with the concept using Iconosquare. I hope everyone is really safe and well wherever you're joining us from today. So before we dive into the webinar itself, let me introduce myself. I'm Cordelia. I'm Customer Education Lead at Iconosquare, and I'm based in our French office in Limoges in the centre of France. And together with the rest of the customer success team, I provide members of the Iconosquare community with the resources they need to be able to use the platform effectively and to its full potential. So just before we start, the webinar itself should run for about 30 minutes and it'll be followed by a Q&A session at the end. The webinar is being recorded for anyone who is unable to join us live today. So don't worry if you need to leave early or if you're at home and the doorbell rings halfway through. I'll be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow, which will include a recording of the webinar so that you can watch it later when you have time. Also, just to mention, due to the current situation, I am hosting this live from my home. So I'm hoping the internet is going to hold up okay. If anything does go wrong though, with the connection, I'll get the webinar recorded and sent out to you guys or via email, and fingers crossed that probably won't be necessary though. I'm also joined today by Trevor and Axel over in the chat box. So don't hesitate to head over there and say hello and let us know where you're joining us from. And do feel free to ask any questions you may have along the way, and they'll be happy to help, I'm sure. And finally, if you do feel like sharing your webinar experience over on Instagram, don't forget to tag us and use the hashtag Iconosquare. So this is the agenda for today's webinar. As you can see, we'll be covering three main topics. So we'll start off with a quick refresher on what social listening really means and how it differs from social monitoring. We'll then be looking at the importance of social listening and some of the different tactics involved. And finally, we'll take a look at some of the tools available on Iconosquare for putting this all into practice and hopefully making social listening a walk in the park. Now, first off, just for the benefit of anyone who is not completely sure of what we mean by social listening, and as a reminder for any of us who might be a bit rusty on the term, let's just take a minute to remind ourselves. So social listening is all about tracking any conversation surrounding your brand, your competitors, and your industry, analysing the data, and making a plan of action on how you can act on these insights in order to make informed decisions for your social media strategy. So you might be thinking this sounds like social monitoring, and you're right, it's pretty similar. But where social listening really differs is that it looks at all of this information at a high level, and rather than just reacting and responding to conversations surrounding your brand, it involves a more proactive approach by taking a deeper dive into why people are saying what they're saying about your brand, your competitors, and the wider industry, and coming up with strategies for improving the conversation surrounding your brand in the long term. You really don't have to look far to understand why this is also important. So first off, understanding what people are saying about your brand allows you to identify areas for improvement, as it lets you see what your customers like and what they don't like about your brand. So if we take an example, fingers crossed, this won't be the case for anyone here, but if you're starting to earn a bad reputation for poor customer service, let's say, customers are fairly likely to head straight to your social media channels to voice their bad experience publicly, maybe because they've exhausted all of the routes and feel like it's their last resort, or maybe they just feel like they'll be listened to on social. And whilst it's totally normal to get the odd negative comment now and again, performing social listening on a regular basis will allow you to pick up on whether these comments are just a one-off or whether they're maybe building up to a more general negative mood surrounding your brand. And if that is the case, picking up on the shift in mood early on will allow you to see what the pain points are and then make changes to your social media strategy, whether that means implementing dedicated customer support via Instagram DMs or whatever else it might take to show your customers that you're taking their feedback on board. And hopefully it'll help you to get your social media sentiment back on track. It can also really help with product development. Some really great product features can actually start out with a customer commenting on Instagram or tweeting you with an idea. After all, your customers are the ones who are hopefully using your product or service on a regular or daily basis. So the chances are they have some really interesting ideas which you can pick up on through social listening. And you can then make sure that they get passed on to your product development team, for example. Social listening also allows you to keep an eye on what your competitors and others in your wider industry are posting, how their audience are engaging with the content, or on the other hand, see what isn't working for your competitors and learn from their mistakes. Who knows, maybe it's actually one of your competitors who has really lousy customer service, and it's actually their Instagram posts which are just flooded with angry customers or waiting for a response. You probably won't get this insight into what their weaknesses are, though, unless you engage in social listening. And if your own customer service is on point, which hopefully it will be, you now know this is what sets you apart from your competitors, and therefore something that you really don't want to let slip. It can also help with finding influencers, brand ambassadors, and with gathering user-generated content. After all, people are often more likely to trust other consumers who have tried and tested your product already. And finally, as if all of that wasn't enough, you can use listening as a way of engaging with your audience and finding out what type of content they want to see. I think this is especially relevant at the moment, given the current situation. There's a lot of sensibility surrounding what type of content is appropriate. Is it the right time to be promoting products? Do people head to social media maybe to escape from this uncertain situation going on at the moment and maybe try to maintain some kind of normality? Or maybe they want to engage in conversation about what current events mean for them and how they're coping. Maybe the answer will actually vary depending on your different audiences. So why not check in with your followers and, ask what type of content they'd like to see, maybe using a poll, for example, or asking them what content would be beneficial to them at this time. And really take the time to listen and respond to all of their suggestions, as Instagram for Business have done here on their own Instagram account. So now that we've gone over some of the reasons why it's so important to be doing social listening, let's take a look at some of the different methods involved. So you're going to need to venture beyond your own comment section in order to find out what people are really thinking about your brand. So a great place to start is, of course, by tracking any mentions of your brand across the different social media platforms. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, so on and so forth. So if we take Instagram as an example, not only are you going to want to monitor where your handle has been mentioned in comments and captions and where you've been tagged in posts, but you're also going to want to track any branded hashtags you might have, campaign hashtags as well, if you've got any, along with unbranded hashtags in your industry and any keywords surrounding your brand. This is, of course, a great method for gathering user-generated content, which you can then share in your own feed. And without going off on too much of a tangent on this topic, because there's loads to say about it, it's just worth mentioning that this type of content is, of course, free. And given that people tend to trust user-generated content more than branded content, it's hard to find a reason not to use it. You can, of course, also track your competitors' hashtags. To be sure to check for any branded hashtags that your competitors might be using, just to see how they're performing and whether any campaigns they're running are paying off or not. And whilst monitoring all of your mentions, your fingers crossed, may be likely to come across potential influencers and brand ambassadors who are, with any luck, already promoting your brand for you for free. So that being said, we all know how huge influencer marketing has become, and it's only expected to grow to be worth $9.7 billion this year, according to Influencer Marketing Hub's 2020 benchmark report. So this report, which also includes data from Creator IQ, also found that usage of Instagram in influencer marketing campaigns has unsurprisingly continued to grow each year, with more than 90% of all influencer marketing campaigns now including Instagram. And just as a final takeaway from the report, 91% of their survey respondents believed influencer marketing to be an effective form of marketing. So now really does seem as good a time as ever to start using social listening as a method for finding influencers and brand advocates to collaborate with. So with all of that being said, you may be feeling slightly daunted and unsure where you're supposed to even begin with monitoring this data. So I thought I'd just give you a few concrete examples of how it can actually be really easy to take your first steps in social listening, in particular using some of the tools available in Iconosquare. So I'm just going to switch to our platform now. So just to start off with, you can quickly and easily monitor any organic comments you receive on posts, both on your Instagram business profile and your Facebook page, under the conversation section. So here you'll see all of the comments received on all of your posts, and you can also mark all of your comments as read if you want to by clicking on this button. So if we actually click on one of these media thumbnails on one of these comments, it will open up the media viewer. And here you can see the caption and all of the comments relating to that post. And you can also filter between all the unread comments, as you can see, using this toggle. So you then have the option of marking each individual comment as read. You can reply to a comment, translate a comment, and remove a comment if you need to. And you also have the option of exporting all of the comments on that particular post. And to do this, you just need to click on this export icon, and you'll then receive the comments export via email, making it even easier to analyze all of your comments. Finally, just to mention, while we're looking at conversations, you can also find the random comment picker tool here. I don't know if you've noticed this feature or come across it already. But this basically just makes running contests on Instagram and Facebook really easy. So you can just access it on any of your media by clicking on this trophy icon, and it'll then open up this pop-in where you can just basically set all of the criteria for your contest. So if you've got a deadline, how many winners you want it to select for you, whether your entrants need to tag a friend, for example. So it's just a really useful little tool worth knowing about if you do run contests on Instagram or Facebook. So the next feature I'm going to talk about is our industry benchmark feature, which is available for both Instagram and Facebook on our Pro, Advanced and Agency plans. And this just offers some really important metrics about other Instagram business profiles and Facebook pages in your industry, giving you some clear, realistic indications of what goals you should be setting for your own account performance. I think it's really easy to find yourself comparing your social media performance to any other brand out there. But it's really important to remember that performance can vary dramatically between different industries, hence why the data in this section is really relevant. We've actually got a really interesting blog post on our blog on this topic. So if anyone is interested in learning more about that topic, just let me know and I'd be happy to send you a link to that specific blog post. So back to the metrics, there's a number of key performance indicators in this section, including average followers growth rate, average engagement rate per post, and the average engagement or reach per post. Engagement on reach is what we can consider to be the most important metric, seeing as it takes into account the number of people your post has actually reached rather than how many followers you have. So I'd really recommend paying special attention to this KPI in particular. So along with the comparative table, which compares other data, such as how many posts and stories you publish each day compared to your industry average, and the average reach rate and completion rate of those posts and stories, you can also see a breakdown of the types of posts which have been published, so photo, video, and carousel, the types of stories which have been published as well. So this really takes out the guesswork and speculation into how well your content is performing compared to that of others in your industry. And also, just to mention, all of these charts can also be exported, so they can really easily be added to any reports that you might need to put together. You can do that just by clicking on the export icon there. So next up, if we head over to the Mentions tab, which is available on our Advanced and Agency plans and is for Instagram business profiles only, you'll find the number of mentions in captions, comments, and tags in posts that you've received during a given time period. And you can, of course, change the date period using the date picker at the top right of the page, just here. So this section shows you the 10 most recent media where you have been tagged or mentioned. And again, you can, of course, export this data as a CSV file just by clicking here. And if you want to see more media, just click on these arrows and click on the See More Media. And you'll then be redirected straight to the tags and mentions feed itself, which includes all media in which you've been tagged or mentioned. And you can just use the filter here at the top right of the page to switch between the different types of mentions. So for example, mentions in caption. So this just makes it really easy for you to identify and make a note of any influencers and potential brand ambassadors who are already talking about your brand. We'll come back to this later on though when we cover the custom feed section. Just to mention quickly here, if you're interested in gathering user-generated content, which I touched on a couple of times earlier on, if you click on a post in this feed, you'll see the repost icon. And when clicking on this, the media will then be saved to your Iconosquare media library. And if you go into your library, you can also add a label to it. For example, label it as user-generated content, for example. And then you'll just start building up, hopefully, lots of user content ready for you to schedule using the Iconosquare scheduler. Also, when you do use that repost button, you'll also receive an email with the media for you to download if you do want to post it straight to Instagram via the app. So if we just go back to the mentions analytics section itself, here you'll find loads of really useful charts for monitoring the number of mentions you're getting. So including the mentions history chart, which is great for seeing how conversations surrounding your brand is evolving over time. If you're running an event or a contest, you may also find the live mentions chart interesting, as this lets you see the number of times your social profile is being mentioned in captions and comments in real time. Unfortunately, there's obviously not much being said about Iconosquare right now. You can also then see a breakdown of the types of tags and mentions you've received, as well as a breakdown of the media type, whether it be photo, video, or carousel. Now, something we've covered quite a lot so far is competitors. Might have trouble moving to the competitor section. Bear with me one moment. So I'm just going to open up an example for you. Yeah, so as we've been discussing, the importance of monitoring what your competitors are posting, depending on which plan you're subscribed to, you can track a number of competitors, again, both Instagram business profiles and Facebook pages. And as you can see here in this section, you can access metrics based on the last 30 days, such as follower growth, posting habits, post density, and also tag usage at the bottom, and also which of their media is the most engaging. making it really easy to see which content is resonating the most with their audience, as you can see in this example with Adidas. So if you click on a media thumbnail, you'll then be able to see the likes and, well, the number of likes and comments for that particular post. Just to mention, due to limitations on the Instagram API, we're not actually able to display the comments themselves for competitors' media. But if you do want to see the comments, you just need to click the view on Instagram icon, as you can see here, and then you can, of course, see all of the comments there. So if we just go to the competitors overview table, so as you can see, we've got all of the competitors at the top here, and on the comparative table itself, this just really handily compares the data for all of your chosen competitors with the data from your own account. So you can see exactly how you're performing in relation to the competitors you're tracking. Again, you can export this table, and we really recommend doing this on a monthly basis. That way you can keep a record of your competitors' performance and monitor how it's changing over time. So similarly to the competitor section, the hashtag section allows you to track a number of specific media. I'm just going to open that up here. Sorry, yeah, so that lets you track a specific number of hashtags rather, depending on the plan you're subscribed to. And this is perfect for tracking any of the many different different types of hashtags we talked about earlier. So whether that be your own branded hashtag or the hashtag of an event you're running, your competitor's hashtag, or even a hashtag that you might be thinking of incorporating into your strategy, just to see how well it's performing. So in this example, as you can see, we can see exactly how the usage of the hashtag Iconosquare has evolved this month so far, as well as a breakdown of the types of media it's been used on. You can also then see the 10 most influential posts which have featured this hashtag, along with the likes and comments history charts, which show you exactly how engagement on this hashtag has evolved during the month. So if you click on the hashtag overview table, which again can be exported, you can easily compare all of the hashtags which you're tracking, similarly to the competitors table. And just as a tip to anyone who might not be aware, you can actually schedule a monthly export for your hashtags from the exports and report section, which is under the analytics tab just here. And this just means that you don't need to remember to manually export the data each month. So alongside hashtag tracking, we also offer a dedicated hashtag feed, which you can find under the My Feed section. Just open up this example here. And so in this dedicated hashtag feed, you can add up to 20 hashtags. I've just added some random hashtags here to give you an idea. And each time you open the feed, you'll be able to see media posted under those hashtags within the last 24 hours. And you can also, again, use the filter here if you want to focus on one of your specific hashtags, for example, Iconosquare. So it just makes it really easy to monitor exactly what's being posted under those different hashtags. And the final feature I just want to cover is custom feeds. So we just open up this custom feed here, and here you have access to a number of different custom feeds depending on your plan. And you can actually add up to 50 Instagram business profiles or Facebook pages to each feed. So this is really ideal for monitoring the content being published by any brand ambassadors you may have, or even potential influencers you might be thinking of collaborating with, just to see if the content they're posting resonates with your brand voice before you reach out to them about a potential collaboration. So I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to go over today. I really hope that's given you a bit more insight into social listening and some of the ways you can optimize your Iconosquare account for this. Just to mention, if you've not yet tried out Iconosquare, just a reminder that we offer a 14-day free trial on the advanced plan, which you can sign up for at the link on the screen. There's no obligation to subscribe to a plan, and you don't have to enter your credit card details or anything like that. And for any of you who may already be subscribed to an Iconosquare plan, but maybe without access to some of the features mentioned in this webinar, if you do want to test out these features, please do reach out to me at Cordelia@Iconosquare, and I'd be really happy to set you up with a 2-week free trial on the advanced plan. So I'm just going to check to see if anyone has any questions at all. We just have a message which came in as a Twitter message from someone asking about the mention section. They're just asking whether it includes access to stories mentions. Just to mention, how many times can I say mention in one sentence? Unfortunately, at the moment, the API doesn't give us access to mentions in stories. Maybe it will be something they'll include in the future, fingers crossed. If they do, we'd love to add that into the platform. But at the moment, it's just mentions in feed posts. Well, thank you so much to everyone for listening. As I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to me at Cordelia@Iconosquare if you do have any questions about anything we've covered today. Visit our website, and you can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Iconosquare. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, wherever you are, and take care.